Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today Pan-African Leather Fair webinar organized by Informa Markets in partnership with African Leather and Leather Product Institute and Leather Apex Kenya and the South African Footwear and the Leather Export Council. For those who don't know me, my name is Mustafa Khalil. I'm Group Director in Informa Market. And as you are all aware, the COVID-19 crisis is still changing the world. And the unpredictable situation and the way the virus spreads have led to travel restrictions and strict physical distancing. To conduct our upcoming Pan-African Leather Fair in Cairo, respecting all measures and restrictions is a huge challenge and cannot fully guarantee the safety of our customers, business partners, and employees. And therefore, we have decided to postpone the show until June 2021. However, Pan-African Leather Fair team is committed to supporting the recovery of the business in the leather and the footwear industry. As such, in collaboration with PALF team in Hong Kong, we will support you during this time by providing you with a unique set of digital products which can help you to meet with international buyers and generating new leads. So if you have any question, just type into the text box located on the right of the presentation window or click the Q&A icon at the bottom of the screen. And please specify which speaker you are addressing the question to. And now I would like to introduce Professor McKinnon, who will be our moderator today, and he has a few announcements before we begin. Professor McKinnon, it's over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mustafa. Thank you also for all those. As indicated by Mr. Mustafa, I will have few announcements to make. The first is this webinar is designed to be interactive. The dock of widgets at the bottom of your screen will allow you to learn about today's speakers, download resources, share this webinar via social media outlets, and participate in the question and answer session that take place at the end of our presentations. The slides will advance automatically throughout the event. You may also download a copy of the slides via the resource widget. Towards the end of our webinar, we will ask you to complete our surveys found on the right-hand side of your screen. Please take a minute to fill this out before leaving us today, as your feedback will provide us with valuable information on how we can improve future similar events. Lastly, if you are experiencing any technical problems, please click the Help widget found at the bottom of your screen, or type your issues or questions into the question and answer area, and we'll be glad to offer one-on-one assistance. Now on the presentation, withstanding the outbreak of COVID-19 in African leather industry, discussing today's topic, I would like to introduce you to our speakers. The first is Professor Minikione Minihija, Executive Director at Africa Leather and Leather Products Institute, who will be followed by Ms. Nerisha Jera, Executive Director at the South Africa Footwear and Leather Export Council. And the third speaker will be Ms. Beatrice Moassi, Business Development Specialist at the Center for Business and Innovation, CVIT, and founder of the Leather Apex Society of Kenya. I will now ask our first presenter, Professor Minihija Munikene. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you very much. A very good afternoon to all of you, hoping that you're at least on the upper zone of the equator so that the afternoon becomes relevant. I can see we have over 50 participants. I also say hello to you, and I want to say thank you to the organizers for making sure that this one happens today. My presentation will actually be looking at the leather sector. I'm a biased man because that's my area. And before I do that, because we're looking at the COVID-19, I would like to create the scenario for my presentation, and then I could proceed forward with it. The first thing that I want to take cognizance of and maybe create the environment for us to discuss is to look at the global population now vis-a-vis the infection that is going on, and then we create a scenario of how my institution called ALPI is working itself towards making sure that the leather sector becomes a reality in addressing some of the issues that are actually emerging. As of yesterday, the population of the world is at 7.8 billion. And we are looking at Africa's population hitting the mark of 1.338 billion. And what is interesting is that the infection right now has hit 6.7 million as per yesterday. And the deaths are 383,000, unfortunately. And because when we are talking about Africa's leather market, we are also looking at some of the most important segments in the globe, I decided also to segment Commonwealth Europe as a unit of discussion and focus. And it's very sad to see that in the Commonwealth, where most of our countries are members, the infection is already hitting 412 as yesterday, and we have 57,000 deaths. Europe, unfortunately, has 2.052235 million, and we have 178,537 deaths. Africa is a continent which is focused today. We are looking at 183,627, and we are looking at deaths that are around 5,000, while Asia has 1.3 million infections, and we have 34,000 deaths. Oceania has the lowest with 6,721 infections and 1,131 deaths, while America has 3.3 million infections with 180,003,000. So this already creates that scenario that we would like to look at, and then you will then take it into context what I'm going to present to you this particular afternoon, and this is very important. So my topic, as introduced by the moderator, thank you very much, moderator, for that, talks about how we are going to look at critical aspects that are key in ascertaining the post-COVID impact that is going to befall Africa. And for me, therefore, to communicate more effectively, I've decided to break it down into 5 components so that the topic itself becomes the issue of our discussion. And this is very important for me. Now, the 5 are Africa's Strive. If you look at the word Africa Strive in the title, this one leads you to looking at issues that show you how we can seek the opportunities. Then we look at skills portability, and all these are actually spoken at with us reflecting on the information I've given you, on the stats that I've given you. And skills portability is nothing but how skills are transferable and shareable. Then I would like to look at SMEs development, and in particular in the leather sector, and I will be looking at how the leather value chain potential is transforming the continent to ensure its growth and development is actually looked into in as far as the society is concerned. And then we look at what is our pet subject, and this is innovation. Then as I wind up, I will be looking at the SMEs operational systems. And here I'm going to look at the dynamics of what affects us in as far as the socioeconomic factors are concerned. So literally, therefore, I've already given you a slight introduction, and I'll move a little bit faster. And what is important is for to capture that the leather sector, irrespective of all the statistics I've given, is contributing around 230 billion USD today, and this is as per the 2019 trademark. And what is important for this particular sector is that it has all the backward, forward, and horizontal linkages, which makes it one of the most vibrant sectors in the agricultural-based commodities. If you want to call it the agro-based industry. And this is important because for it to thrive, irrespective of what is happening now in the world, we cannot rule out the importance of the education system in Africa. And one of the most important issues that we know is that we have been looking at universities and the vocational training centers, and ALPI, or the African Leather and Leather Products Institute, has deliberately looked at what we can do using these institutions to address some of the issues that are going to be hit hard, as I'm going to demonstrate in a few minutes from now. Now, what is important is that when we did a very quick survey, most of the CEOs in Africa are saying we have skills shortage. So you can imagine what is going to happen with the COVID. Now our dilemma is that if Africa is experiencing the same, what is the global scenario? It is not far from Africa, and you can find that 55% are actually saying that we have a shortage of skills, and this definitely makes us less innovative. Now, inadequacy of skills, lack of innovation are all issues that are very, very critical, and they've given us a big skills gap. So for us, therefore, to address issues of the leather value chain, we will need in Africa to make sure that we have institutions like ALPI that can sit down and assist the national governments and the Continental Free Trade Area, which is the driver of Africa, to ensure that we move faster and forward towards that particular fruition. However, the biggest problem that we are facing right now is the youth employment. I was surprised that a few days ago, I listened to the CEO of African Development Bank, and he indicated that we have around 13 million youths being produced by our universities or higher education institutions, and 3 million every year do not even find a place where they can earn their living. This is interesting, and this is where now we need to look at the issues of portability of skills. Fortunately, in Africa, we have pockets that have skills, but unfortunately, we have a close down of our own borders that do not allow the free movement of youth who are qualified to move from one area to another. And this then puts us always on an issue where we feel like we don't have skills. So what has it opened up? It has opened up an opportunity for 25 million international migrants who are today in this continent closing the gap. However, for us to be sustainable, we will therefore need to make sure our own skills so that the 25 who are already working with us can either transfer their skills, or we have to supplement their efforts in making sure that Africa is okay. Now, the only issue that we have, therefore, is to make sure that we harmonize our artisanal training. And this is what ALPI is doing. And we are so happy that we have just signed an agreement with ILO to start doing exactly that. And we are starting to make sure that we start harmonizing our skills so that they are available to our SMEs. There are also common standards that we need to follow, and we are working on that. And this is very, very important. So to us, we need to make sure that skills are addressed. But the question is employability, skills, and all these things. We need policy direction. For us to do that, we are, and I'm very happy in this particular webinar, to inform you that we are already working with AU to make sure that they realize the Agenda 2063. And for them to do that, we have attached ourselves in two great pillars. And one of them is to ensure, of course, the prosperity of Africa and to make sure that we bring out the growth and development to transform the leather sector by also addressing Aspiration 6, which also looks at the potential that we can explore to make sure that we have the fruition. But we know very well we cannot do that if we don't align ourselves with the SDG. And that is exactly what we are trying to do, and making sure that through the harmonization program, we ensure that quality education, industry, innovation, and infrastructure are looked at closely. So for us, therefore, to make sure that these skills and development are impactful, we are saying we need to work with HE, this is higher education systems, and I'm happy also to announce that we have 10 universities that we are already working with in ALPI to ensure that skills are evolved at the national state, and we have sub-clustered countries that can evolve through those particular institutions so that we can have a skilled manpower, make sure that our goods are competitive, productive, and make sure that innovativeness becomes an inbred issue. Because without innovation, we can forget about competitiveness and we can forget about being innovative. And this is very, very important. I just wish to say thank you by quoting Nelson Mandela, who is our icon, who said, peace is not just the absence of conflict, but peace is the creation of an environment where all can flourish regardless of race, color, creed, religion, gender, class, caste, or any other social markers of differences. Moderator, thank you very much. I think I've just taken 1 minute of your time. Thank you.
Sorry, I was saying thank you, Professor Minhija, for the valuable information. The few questions audience will have, we will come back to you at the end of the 3 presentations. I am now inviting our second presenter, Ms. Nerisha. Over to you, Ms. Nerisha.
Hello, Professor.
Madam Beatrice, is it you presenting?
I've seen it is my slides that are on, but you're calling on something else. Should I go right ahead?
Sorry, over to you then, Ms. Beatrice.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Mekonnen. Hello to everybody. I'm happy to see very many people have managed to join in. Thank you, Professor Munyiija. Quite an informative presentation, which provides a very good frame for the conversation we are having this afternoon. I also want to take this earliest opportunity to thank the PALF leadership for making this webinar possible. I know we had planned and we're looking forward to have the Pan-African Leather Fair, but this is an opportunity for us to learn new technology and also get to meet through the virtual world. As Professor has rightly put, the general impact of COVID-19 has been felt across all sectors, albeit differently because of the various dynamics we have across. And we're also feeling it in the leather sector, and therefore I think this is quite a timely conversation for us to hit and how we can better organize ourselves so that we can thrive during this particular period and also after the COVID period. And therefore, my presentation is mainly going to look into the concepts of value creation. How do we deliver the value that we are creating, and how do we capture value that we have created during this particular time and also beyond COVID. So because you see, somebody coughed somewhere, we caught the cold, but business must go on. So I'm going to skip the introduction because it has been very well covered by Professor Mekanen during the introduction. Okay, so before the cough happened and we caught the cold, of course, Africa was reorganizing itself at the continental level to see how we can harness the bountiful resource we have, the continent, to the benefit of its people, so that we can thrive socially and also so that we can thrive economically. I don't want to go over the normal everyday conversation about how resourceful we are, because you see right now, talking about the current scenario in the 21st century, we cannot just continue holding conversation about the resources, natural resources. If we're going to put innovation onto the equation so that we can translate the natural resources into economic gain for our people. And things have been made, have been done ever since COVID happened. And the current scenario that is being painted is that things are going to be normal. We are going to feel it in terms of social and economic advancement. And I think those of us who are in the industry, we are already beginning to see that happening right now. Things are different in Kenya, for example. So we had a lockdown, and I know many other countries had a lockdown, although we have a few that didn't change in terms of their day-to-day business operations. But if I may take the Kenyan situation, for example, of course things are different. People decided to take a step back. They can get to understand the pandemic or the COVID-19, the coronavirus pandemic that was with us, and how we can better organize and position ourselves as businesses so that we can get back. But as it is right now, of course, partially open, partially getting back to business, and businesses are under lockdown and movement is restricted, many things happen. The supply chains are weakened. As we speak, you can't even move from one part of Nairobi to the other. People are restricted coming into Nairobi, for example. Even some other nearby towns are also to move. And when we experience that kind of restriction, basically it also means that we can't move raw materials and some of the production inputs that we have to power our industries.
Yeah,
but see, when we're talking about lockdown,
so you should be able to see me now.
Lockdown is also not just internal within our borders. We're also experiencing borders are crossed. Now, if you look at the leather industry, for example, most of our product input, especially those of us in manufacturing, most of our inputs are imported. And when the borders are locked, movement is restricted. We have a few flights, making in and out of the country. Then such material becomes scarce, and definitely it has an impact on the way we do business. Recently, we had a colleague in industry who actually was calling for help because they had an order, had finished producing whatever it is that they were to produce for a client elsewhere, but they couldn't have their goods because the cost of shipment was 89% of the value of goods, of the goods that she was having. So that was a bit challenging. And that is basically what everyone is feeling. We try to intervene by also, trying to see whether anything can be done on the side of the logistics companies. As much as in this particular case we got support, what the response you get from logistics companies, we have few flights that are making in and out. So basically what they are loading on backwards onto us is basically the cost of them transacting their business on the other side. So we are impacted in various ways, and we must therefore start thinking, how do we thrive? How do we exist? How do we ensure that we survive today to be able to see tomorrow? Now, looking at various studies, of course, we are told, if you look at the previous pandemics, it is important for us to start facing the reality. Getting back to normal might not happen tomorrow. It may take quite some time. We therefore position our businesses so that then we see tomorrow. At industry level, we had our own, locally here in Kenya, we decided to have a webinar to try and establish the impact of COVID on the industry. And what came out is that most of our companies had closed, basically. People are not moving. You have retail stores, nobody's coming to your retail store. What purpose is retail store open? So the number of them had closed down, operating between 10 to 50%. So they had already hit. Basically, everybody was watching to first, the most important thing, priority is to stay safe, be safe, and how we start venturing out. So while people are under lockdown, definitely, according to a number of studies, is people are beginning to rethink. We are beginning to develop a new appreciation to things. The kind of images. For example, we saw a lot of documentaries and images on how Earth or the world was restoring itself. We started sizing up and establishing how impactful on the negative we had been on the environment. So people have started rethinking. And then also, while you are not really engaged in unbridled consumption, you start to realize that there are a couple of things you can do without. So we have consumers. People are locked down, but again, people are beginning to think. And as people think and as they start reviewing and assessing their own impact, individual impact to the environment, it is anticipated that may have an influence on how they buy and how they behave, even when we get back to the to business running and conducting our businesses as well before COVID. Now, if we anticipate that consumers, we may have a totally renewed consumer with a totally new mindset, with a new set of appreciation, basically a consumer with a new value system, then it's important for us as business to anticipate that change and to start quickly thinking on how do we now get to serve emerging consumer. But even before we get to exploring on how we meet and serve the new emerging consumer, we also have this, we have a challenge of ensuring that we survive today amidst the current dynamics of lockdown, and down supply chains, being able to, wishing to reach a consumer, not able to reach that consumer. People really not even being able to reach out for the products that we are meeting. How do we survive today so that then again we can ready and prepare ourselves to meet the new emerging? As I said, the value may change. So now the current experience that the people have are experiencing, undergoing. The bottom line here is whatever the we're going to have, the post-COVID customer, the current customer, the most important is sure that whatever it is that we are producing in as far as leather and leather products really outweighs the receiving these products. And that's why I cited just a few minutes ago of one of our colleagues who had a whole consignment of goods. But in trying to ship the goods, the courier company was asking 89% of the value of goods. Of course, the client cannot be able to meet that cost on the consignment. So therefore, what is it that we must do therefore, so that then we are able to provide value, but so that the value that is accrued out of whatever it is we are making outweighs products. Now, looking at this is a typical leather value chain that I got from ETG, but that is normally projected. Often we forget about the part of it. So we have the various sub-segments of the chain, but of course we have retailers on the other side. What is of utmost importance is for us to appreciate that at every aspect of the value chain, those are customers. And those customers that we have within the value chain are also seeking value. So how do we ensure, even before we start thinking about serving the external client, ensure that those that we have within the value chain are better catered for? I've had conversations whereby you find the buyers of hides and skins who are tanners complaining about the quality of hides and skins that they are receiving, let's say, from the traders and from the abattoirs. But then on the other side, on the flip side also, we have skins who are also complaining about the value they accrue out of the hides and skins that they receive. I will not get time to go through the entire value chain, but the most of fundamental importance is how do we ensure, even as we start thinking about how to better cater for the current consumer and the post-COVID consumer, how do we ensure that even within the value chain where most of us are players, we ensure that we hand over utmost value to the next in line so that ultimately when we get to the users and the retailers of our product, we are giving value. Because it's through that combined effort that we are going to thrive during this particular period, and so that we are also going to stay and be on an uptrend even after COVID. This is a study that was done by various research institutions. Under each particular number, you can see the research institution that conducted and gave us some of these pointers. And basically, going by the pointers, it is basically confirming that people are beginning to develop new value systems and appreciating life in a totally different way. So, but as I said earlier, most important thing is then how do we go about establishing what each of these consumers or the customers that we seek to serve, what it is that they want, and how, therefore, even with the broken down supply chains, how do we then, therefore, deliver the value that they so much seek? Maslow, initially we were told, through business schools, we'll be told, of course, human beings will first go for basic needs. And of course, the basic needs were the standard, like physiological needs, food, shelter, and clothing. But now, during post-COVID, and then you're told you go up, and as you go up, people seek for bigger and better things because we've settled. But what is value right now during the COVID period? What do we consider to be the basic need? What is a basic need? What will be luxury, for example, at a time like now? Now, if you look at the human need for survival, we want to survive. Somebody wanting to lock themselves down will wonder, do they lock them down or themselves down? Or do they seek to survive by fending for themselves? Because most of the people in Kenya were questioning whether it is worthwhile to be in the house and die of hunger or to stay outdoors, go fend, and be able to place a meal on the table. So right now, looking at the Maslow's pyramid, luxury is no longer, the most expensive or the most unique product. Has boiled down to be that ability for you to stay in the house and still be able to afford a meal at the end of the day. That becomes luxury. Luxury to an entrepreneur running a business is your ability to lock down for a period of time and still be able to pay salaries, afford to keep your business running. So basically looking at the Maslow's pyramid, it's no longer, the most unique to the product or the rarest of the items that we refer as luxury, but it is basically the ability to survive, afford a living under the current dynamics and situation. So basically, we have these clients or our targeted consumers that have totally a different understanding as to what a luxury is. But as we talk about value, of course, let's not so much focus on only the customers. Right now, as entrepreneurs, we also must start looking at a balance because we have the customers, we have employees. And most of us are worried on how do we keep the businesses going? How do we ensure that we retain talent, we don't lose talent? How do we ensure that investors also get value? So even as we lock down, even as we seek to serve at the end user, how do we also ensure that those that are working with us in serving the end users and the buyers of our items are also well catered for and also well supported during the COVID period? How do we also ensure, even while we are doing that, our investors are also not going at a loss? That is a challenging one, especially to micro enterprises that were already on their knees even before COVID happened. I want to quickly go through this because I think I've touched on it, where we are saying, we have a new set of customers this time round. They're not just going for luxury for the sake of it. It's not about the price tag on the product, but the value. People are going to be more careful on how they impact on the environment. Customers are online, they are digital. Actually, even recently, we had a documentary that was showing the micro, small-scale entrepreneurs, the hawkers of second-hand clothing, that are saying they are not worried anymore about the lockdown because they went online and they are meeting their clients online. So they are not worried about the reopening of Nairobi and people being allowed to access Nairobi. So going digital is big because that's where the current buyer, the current customer is. So how do we ensure the entrepreneur, the micro entrepreneur in leather industry that does not even have a website or does not even have e-commerce skills, how do we ensure that this micro entrepreneur in the leather industry is able to thrive using the virtual world? Okay. On the side of employees, right now, of course, people are on the lookout, seeing what brands are better taking care of their employees. How do we ensure also, looking inward, how do we ensure that you retain talent? Because you see, if I look at my enterprise in the leather industry, it took me years to train my talent. Yeah, it has taken me quite some years. It actually took me about 5 years of the skill sets of the workers that I have. Now, I'm faced with COVID, the lockdown. Customers are not as frequent as they were before, but then I can't afford to lose talent because you see, now I begin to ask myself, what will be more costly? Leaving the talent that I was able to nurture and develop over a period of 5 years to go, or to hold them for a period of time, hoping for a better tomorrow. So how do we, as entrepreneurs, as an industry, both the region and continent, how do we ensure that we are able to nurture this talent, but still ensure that the micro enterprises, the large enterprises that are also under lockdown are also the talents are nurtured and kept, and also so that then the business can go and start running as soon as we return to normalcy. Same thing, if everybody is going digital, there is also this eminent need to upskill. How do we ensure that we develop competence that we require? And a time like now is the best time that I tend to think that we can develop, because if you're not outside there meeting and supplying goods to your clientele, then this would be the best time for us to start now filling the gaps in terms of skills, so that we sharpen our knowledge and skills to be able to get back up and running when things get back to normalcy. So, of course, shareholders are hoping and waiting for value of their investment. Of course, they put in money and expecting to benefit out of the investment. And basically, a couple of ways that we can go about it is the most important, the most key one for me that came out of the webinar that we had with the leather industry is the ability now to start thinking about how we come together as enterprises. How do we collaborate? How do we ensure that we are developing and generating a healthy, efficient ecosystem around the industry that we run? Can we cluster? Can we cooperate as clusters? Can we develop strategic alliances? Because through the clusters and strategic alliances, we may be able now to have collective potential that we have as an industry to go forward. On innovation, Professor put it very well. We definitely, at a time like this is the time that you have to adapt to fit, or basically shape out if you cannot adapt. So innovation is very key. Thinking about if the value system changes and people are beginning to have a totally new way of appreciating the world within which they live, then it goes without saying that we need, therefore, to generate products that befit the new normal or the new value that has been generated by our customers. But then for us to be able to generate these new products, we need innovation. Businesses must look beyond. Yeah, they must look beyond the normal way of doing businesses, conducting their current business. So basically, we are saying we have a totally broken system right now. How do I survive today, and how do I ensure that I thrive immediately after the pandemic? Now, looking at the things that we have talked about the three things where we're saying we have the
Madam
three,
Beatrice, we are through with the time.
Okay, so just let me conclude. So we have the three members that we are talking about within of who we have to create value. But then we ask ourselves, looking at the leather industry as it were today, about 80% of entrepreneurs that we have in the industry are micro. We equip them, therefore, to be able to create value. How do we equip them, therefore, and support them at the current situation to be able to deliver the value? And how do we ensure that they are capturing value so that businesses are worthwhile? We need support in terms of positioning, giving the skills. We need support in terms of stimulus packages to be able to boost these industries, and we need to collaborate both across industry, government, and academia. Because you see, we are talking about coming up with new business models. We need the academia and development partners to come together so that then we can develop new models that will facilitate the entrepreneurs in leather to be able to create, deliver, and capture value. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Beatrice. I know you have a lot to share us. If time hadn't been a limitation from our side, we'll have the opportunity that you will come back with few questions. Now, let me call our third presenter, Ms. Nerisha. Over to you, Ms. Nerisha.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
That's perfect. Welcome, everybody. My name is Nerisha Jairaj, and I am from the South African Footwear and Leather Export Council. It's a real pleasure to be here today. I'm going to start off following from my colleagues, and before I continue, I am having a bit of connection problems, so please, if I have to have any technical issues, please in advance accept my apologies. I'm going to first update you on the South African footwear and leather industry and what we do as an export council. Before we move into COVID, we all know that we've been attacked by this terrible pandemic. And yes, it's put all of us in a back foot, but I am somebody that thinks very positively, and I believe that there's a solution that can be found for every problem. So let's begin with the South African Footwear and Leather Export Council. The South African Footwear and Leather Export Council is in charge of a few industries. We're in charge of the entire footwear and leather industry in South Africa, the handbag, the belts, the general goods, as well as the tanneries and raw materials. We have another council called the Ostrich Export Chamber, and they control our exotics, being our crocodile, our ostrich, as well as our game skin. And finally, we also made up of the taxidermy sector. Now, you probably wonder why we segmented and divided the groups into these different groups. It's because each of them need different strategies, they require different sorts of management, and they require different sorts of input from a skills perspective. Now, as an export council, our first job and duty is to ensure that we take what we call a very broken house. And you can see my analogy there. A very broken house. Why do we say broken house? If we look throughout Africa currently, what was our post-COVID challenges? Some of those post-COVID challenges is that we have and still have a very weak supply chain, an extremely weak supply chain. We have an issue at the moment with our small, micro-sized entities requiring training and skilling as far as quality is concerned. We need to understand global trends, which work 2 years in advance. A global buyer purchases 2 years, one and a half years to 2 years in advance. And he needs to be buying things that are 1 to 2 years in advance in trends, not what we're selling in the stores now. We have capacity issues, compliance issues, efficiencies, training, technology, and infrastructure. So what we did here in South Africa is we started training programs in all of these little things. From a trend perspective, we've aligned with Assotoria, which is based in Italy. They have educated our manufacturers as well as our neighboring SADC countries in trends 2 years in advance, understanding brand marketing, understanding how to market their product interregionally as well as globally. They have also assisted with the quality area, the capacity issues, and the compliance issues. So we have provided various training programs throughout the year through different entities that we have aligned ourselves with. Another example will be the Footwear Distributors and Retailers Association of America, the Brazilian Footwear and Components Association, the Indian Footwear and Retailers Association. All this collective learning is being brought down into South Africa by professionals and are being taught to our manufacturers. And that's us now trying to build this broken house. We also move on to our membership profile. Majority of our members sit in the footwear sector currently. We have over 200 to 300 footwear manufacturers. We also have component manufacturers, handbag manufacturers, and small leather goods manufacturers. We have a limited amount of tanneries. Everybody knows Africa is rich in our leathers. Now, an important factor to understand is the component sector, because we spoke about the supply chain issue. South Africa's component sector is now being supported by the South African government. They have opened up a cluster to help us strengthen the component sector so that our supply chain can be strengthened. Currently, South Africa manufactures for the likes of Puma, Disney, Crockett & Jones, Hush Puppy, Jordan, Nike, PHS, Johnson & Murphy, Barker, Grasshopper, and we've just clinched a deal with Steve Madden. Pre-COVID, and this is pre-COVID, our exports, as you can see, have grown quite steadily from the dip that we originally had in 2018. So we've had steady growth in exports, and I'm going to tell you why. The reason we've had growth in exports is because of all of the missions, outward selling missions, all of the exhibitions that are all government funded from South African government to encourage exports. So our exhibitions are funded by the South African government. They give opportunities to the South African manufacturers to platform on international exhibitions. Now let's just go back a little. Let's look at all of the stuff that we in South Africa are doing for our manufacturers. And the reason I'm starting with what we do is I'm hoping that some of these learnings can be taken throughout the region. I heard just now, our previous presenter said that we are lacking as a continent in skills. Well, I personally from South Africa would offer that to the entire region, because we've taken our government supports us on the international platform, and being a government entity or subsidiary of government, we have ensured, as you saw in my first slide, that we are we are training our people, we are skilling them, we are assisting them to understand the needs and the wants of the global buyers. And over and above that, we're currently negotiating with a lot of retailers internationally. Now let's go to the serious stuff. COVID. All the work that we have done over the past few years came to an absolute halt with COVID, as it has within the rest of Africa and the world. It's not something that we invited, situation that we're in. And it has jerked us into thinking again and re-evaluating all of the programs, all of the strategies, all of the work that we had done pre-COVID. It has now changed. We are now playing in a totally different ball game. Now let's look at what has happened pre-COVID. Most of South Africa's manufacturers had every single one of their orders cancelled from all of their retailers, locally and internationally. Now let's look at these manufacturers. They have already spent money. They have already invested money in purchasing their raw materials. They have already manufactured some of the orders that they had in play. And immediately, when our lockdown was announced, everything got cancelled. Our retailers were put in a situation through lockdown where they were paralyzed. They were unable to open their brick and mortar doors and operate. This meant that they had fallen into a situation where they were sitting with stockpiles. So when we moved from level 5, which was total lockdown, that allowed only essential goods, to level 4, that allowed us to start selling some goods, to now level 3, our industry became cash-strapped, as with most manufacturers, I would think, not only throughout Africa, but throughout the world. And we needed, as industry bodies, to come up with ideas to improve monetary cash flow within each business, to keep them alive and to assist them to survive until the retailers reopened and probably or possibly reinstated some orders or smaller orders to keep them going. If we look at the manufacturers themselves, or when we assessed the manufacturers themselves, I'm just going to skip on to the next slide. When we looked at the manufacturers themselves, the manufacturer was being directly affected by the fact that the retailers were stockpiling and their orders were closed. The retailers themselves will be directly impacted by the fact that consumers' needs and wants had changed to immediate needs and wants. Like the previous presenter presented, the immediate needs and wants of food. Masks became a need and want. Disinfectant became a needs and want. And we found that due to job retrenchments during the lockdown, income became tight and disposable income became tight. So when our retailers open, there's no guarantee that they will be supported by the consumer, because the consumer is now reassessing where to spend that limited disposable income. And that goes back again to our manufacturer, who is in a situation where he may not be getting new orders. He's sitting already with the costs of paying his employees, his operation costs, and over and above that, he needs to make sure that he can survive until things supposedly come back to normal and he can get going again. So right now we are sitting in a scenario where it's survival of the fittest. Who is going to survive this? It's going to be the guys that fight through. What we basically did during level 5 lockdown as a body is understanding that cash flow was going to be an issue, and understanding that these manufacturers had employees to pay, and understanding that we needed them to survive post-COVID up until the time that their orders came back in. So a few other bodies and I went in and we diversified the entire footwear, leather, and clothing and textile industry. We said, you guys have machines. We are running out of PPE as a country. And we diversified those factories to start manufacturing masks, gowns, aprons, foot covers, you name it. We changed from a footwear and leather industry to a PPE industry during lockdown, diversifying as fast as possible for survival and cash flow. And this is basically what we did. We said to our manufacturers that this was one of the ways they could try and survive through this entire mission. We're going to skip through here where I'm saying that we needed to take a team approach. We had to look at government and have discussions with government about how they were going to assist the industry. We needed to go back to industry and say, guys, how are you going to diversify? And then we also needed to go to our international buyers, our international associations, to understand and learn about what they were experiencing within their countries. What was their learnings? What was the situation with their footwear and leather industry? How were they proposing to get over it? You know, what were their challenges? And for us to collectively understand that. I know there's a lot of people from Africa on this webinar. And from South Africa point of view, I'm saying, Africa, we together need to work as a team. A soccer match is not played by one person. It is played by a team. Each of us in all of our countries have a specific and special skill set. And if we bring these skill sets together, if we start talking to each other, if we start sharing our knowledge, we will be able to get over this pandemic, and we will be able to get over it as easily as possible, maybe even sooner than the rest of the globe. Now, I mentioned government earlier, and I said that there were some government interventions. Time. COVID, the South African government put in special grants in place. And unemployment time, and we got time. Okay, let's go fast. So the South African government put through special sort of UIFs and TERS funds and 4-month holidays and all of that stuff, pay as you earn, to help us to get through. We found through all of our global research, because we've interacted with all the associations, that e-commerce platforms had increased sales by 200%. Most of them were diversifying, and most countries were moving towards localization. So basically, buy Africa, convincing consumers to buy locally, because that is the only way we are going to be able to rebuild our countries. We have also been driving retailer collaboration through localization campaigns and buy local campaigns. When we with our factories, we are training them on back to operation social distancing, ensuring that they understand how to handle possible infections during operation and to minimize. I know that I'm very much held for by time, but what I'd like to say to end off is we basically have pressed the reset button. We've pressed the reset button. Brick and mortar versus e-commerce. E-commerce is the winner here. Each of us need to find out within our own individual countries how we would get even our emerging exporters on e-commerce platforms. We need to look at localization within each of our country. And we need to look at price and quantity. We need to analyze that. What came through from our global analysis is because of disposable income and loss of jobs, More utilitarian type of footwear will be required, which is budget footwear, affordable handbags. So let's reassess. Let's get back to our homes. When I say homes, are each of our countries, and reassess how we are going to do this. How are we going to make sure we give the world what they want, budget footwear? And Africa is the best people to do this. We are experts at budget footwear, and we've got the leather to do that. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed the presentation. I hand over to our moderator.
Thank you very much, Ms. Narisha. Really very much appreciated, and always a lot of interesting and valuable information shared. I'm sure our audience have benefited a lot from all the three presentations. We are through with the presentations. We will have few questions. Although there are many, we are limited by time. But before proceeding to questions and answer session, I just would like to remind the announcement that I made earlier, which refers to completing the survey questions, which are displayed on your screen on the right side. If you had closed the window, you can reopen it. They are indicating this one. As I said also, this feedback is very valuable for future similar events to make them much better and interesting. Now we'll proceed to few identified questions, at least one for each speaker. I'll start with Professor Minihija. Our audience first thanked you for providing the valuable information, which he very much appreciated. And the question reads as follows. Considering that ALPI is quasi-government institution, what are you doing with regards to safeguarding the use of the term leather in labeling, as was recently endorsed by the European Union, as was lobbied also by the Italian Tanners Association unit? Over to you, Professor Minihija, to answer this question before I pass to the second.
Thank you very much for that very, very valuable question. I want to thank my colleagues. They have just done a splendid job. I sat back to enjoy exactly what is happening, especially from the private sector perspective. That particular question, Mr. Moderator, Professor McConnell, I had partially answered it in the Q&A box, but for the benefit of everybody else, because you have asked it publicly, we need a public response. Is that first and foremost, we have to understand one thing, that standards are very much voluntary. And we had discussed this in the ISO 120 committee 5 years ago about this leather and the definition of leather. And the reason why this one had to come into place is because we've had several types of definitions that are coming into the market, and all of them to sidetrack the audience and particularly the buyers from the product. For instance, let me give you an example. In the market, you'll find something called synthetic leather. So you'll never hear robot man. So it is either synthetic or leather. And yet it made itself into the market and it became acceptable, and people are looking at it as a very good way of categorizing issues. So this is one thing that we really fought for, and I'm happy that the delegation from EU that was attending some of the ISO meetings was very much pro us, and I'm happy that they have actually took the banner to the finish line. So it is up to the rest of the countries now to follow up. And in Africa, what ALPI wants to do now, to come critically to the question, is that we have a meeting of all standards body in August, where we're going to bring all the standards bodies from leading member states in Africa to come and discuss about harmonizing the issue of terminology. And I'm happy that IUTCS, International Tanners Council, all have started looking critically on the glossary and terminologies of leather to make sure that it is a universally acceptable term indicating that leather is and will always be from animal resources. Thank you.
Okay, our next question is for Nirisha. The question is, first and foremost, our application to SAFLEC for coming through and engaging with the rest of Africa. Last engagement was in 1998 during the inaugural African Level Fair Meet in Africa. Is, first and foremost, our application to SAFLEC for engaging with the rest of Africa.
Sorry.
Yes.
Thank you. My audio was muted.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. If somebody can just put thumbs up so I know that you can hear me. I'm actually sad that the last collab was in 1998. That's actually not a very good thing. I think that we obviously as Africa need to get together. I've been at SAFLEC now for the past 6 years, and myself and my team have changed quite a lot. We are on the SADC forum. We've been assisting our neighboring countries as far as the development of their exports as well. We've been sharing skilling platforms. So to the person that asked that question and to everybody else that's listening, I'm again going to state us as the Export Council in South Africa, being SAFLEC, we are prepared to skills share. We are prepared to knowledge share. We are prepared to share our platforms with you. I firmly believe that we as Africa need to grow together. If you all would have read the World Footwear Organization's prediction on how business would be for the rest of the globe post-COVID, and you would have noted that when they looked at Africa, they stated that Africa would be one of the markets with more stability from footwear and leather, which was actually quite shocking to see that that was their prediction. And again, I'm going to say I'm very positive thinking. I know that we have the challenges, but if we stand together as a team and do this working together and sharing of knowledge, I think 100% we can make it and we can show the globe what we're made of. I hope that answers your question, but if not, please feel free to also contact me on my email address. You can contact the organizers or any interaction. I'm extremely open to it. My team is extremely open to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nirisha. Sorry for the initial muted voice. The third question goes to Ms. Beatrice. Our audience from Kenya puts the following question. He says, can there be a channel for graduates to transit from school to jobs? I normally hear everyone in the leisure sector say there is no enough trained people, but on the other hand, find that there are people with this skill but are still jobless. Ms. Beatrice, can you reflect on this question? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can you repeat the question? You asked, can there be a channel? I didn't get the question. I'm trying to locate it on the Q&A.
He's saying,
can you come again?
From school, can people? I am saying, can there be a channel for graduates or a way for the graduates to transit from school to jobs? Can they get job after graduation quickly? That is the main point.
Okay, thank you very much. That's a very good question, because right now, as we try to encourage young talent to pursue courses and degrees in leather technology or design, in leather goods manufacturing and production, most of them will be asking us, are there job prospects? Because everybody's looking into the encouragement and confirmation that after their schooling period, they'll be able to get employment at the end of the day. And that is a very critical question in as far as most industries in Kenya and other parts of Africa concerned, because we have very few industries that are running leather manufacturing or leather tanning enterprises. And for that reason, we have very limited job prospects. So the question therefore begs, what do we do with that we encourage to take up leather degrees and leather technology degrees or leather manufacturing courses? My take on this would be, we can, if we strike a partnership between academia and industry. Why do I say this? On one side in industry, you will hear most entrepreneurs telling you they're looking for suitable talent to join their enterprises so that together they can create a team that can generate products that are competitive at the marketplace. But on this other side, you find that we have limited industries, and therefore by virtue of the fact that we have limited industries, for failing to so that we can grow we can generate our industrial growth in leather, then we have limited prospects. So we need to strike this partnership. And if we strike partnership, then that means the graduates that comes out of the institutions of learning is well suited to serve industry. And if we have a very well trained and equipped graduates to partner with entrepreneurs in the leather industry, then together the two of them can enterprise in a manner that is competitive. And by being competitive, the result would be that the enterprise will grow. If the enterprise grows, then we expand job prospects. So the current scenario is we have enterprises that are struggling to grow, and by refusing to grow or not being able to grow, they cease or they fail to graduate from micro enterprises to medium, to small, to medium, and large enterprises. And when they experience that growth, they don't open up job prospects. So, I would say that's a good question. Let academia or institutions of learning strike a very healthy working partnership with industry, so that then we can both together generate a workforce that can enable industry to compete and grow.
Thank you very much, Ms. Beatrice. Now I will request our director, Mustafa, to raise question or answer some points. Over to you, Mr. Mustafa.
Professor, can I add something?
We are out of time.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yes. Yes, Mr. Haji, please go ahead.
Yes. I just wanted to add something. I just wanted to add something on what Madam Beatrice has said, which is very fundamental, if it is allowed.
Yes, Prof. Yes, Prof.
Okay.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'll be very fast. In fact, what Madam Beatrice has already said, that is exactly what is happening. I just wanted to top it up with my opening statement. saying that in ALPI, what we are trying to do now is to harmonize all the skills deficit in Africa. By so doing, we have countries that are overproducing skills that can be utilized everywhere else. So by the time we finish the study, which we are starting next week with ILO, we would have done a profiling of which country has a deficit in which particular specialization, either leather goods, footwear, garments, or design. And once we know that, then we will advise each other country that has deficit that it can actually source that particular skill in country X or country Y. And this is why I said we are our own worst enemies, because we have blocked our countries from transferring and making sure that skills is portable to many other countries. That's why the topic was portability of skills. So this is also reminiscent with the indicator that we have 25 million migrants coming to work within the leather sectors in various cadres. It is an indicator that we are ready to employ all the skills we have. The only issue is that we make sure that the qualifications are agreeable. This is why we're doing the harmonization. And then we also make sure that the training is actually in tandem to the expectation of the private sector, so that they can build confidence that they're getting what they're seeking for. So I was just about to say, these are things that are going to manifest themselves by the beginning of 2022, when this study is going to indicate which country needs what type and which cadre for what type of specialization. Thank you. This is just to add on what Madam Beatrice has ably presented. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Munihija, as usual, for this excellent additional input. Now I turn back to Mr. Mustafa. Over to you.
Okay, Professor, I think we are run out of time, so yeah, it's over to you back, and I can send the question, all the answers by email to all attendees.
Thank you very much. Sorry for the time constraint. I think that's all the time we have for questions today. Thank you. We appreciated your time and expertise on our today's topic. Thank you to our partners, APLF, Africa Leather and Leather Products Institute, Leather Apex Kenya, and the South African Footwear and Export Council, as well as to everyone in the audience. We appreciate your attention and participation. Within the next 24 hours, you will receive a personalized follow-up email with details and a link to today's presentation on demand.